Claire tightened the straps of her backpack as she walked along the winding trail. The forest was eerily quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves overhead. She glanced at her phone. No signal. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to move as she passed. The wind picked up, carrying a sound that made her pause. It was faint, almost indistinguishable from the breeze, but she could have sworn she heard her name. Claire! She spun around, her heart pounding. There was no one behind her, only the empty path she'd already covered, lined with towering trees that seemed to close in the deeper she went. Get a grip, she muttered under her breath. Shaking her head, she pressed on, her footsteps crunching against the dirt path. But the sound came again, clearer this time. Claire, come back. Her breath hitched. It wasn't the wind, it was a voice. Several voices, low and overlapping, whispering just beyond her line of sight. She turned in a slow circle, scanning the forest, but the whispers seemed to surround her, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Who's there? She called out, her voice trembling. No answer, only silence. She quickened her pace, the fading light making it harder to see the path ahead. Her flashlight, buried deep in her backpack, felt miles away. As she stumbled forward, the trail seemed unfamiliar, though she was sure she hadn't taken a wrong turn. The trees here were different, gnarled and twisted, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal hands. And then she saw it. A cabin stood just off the path, its roof sagging and its windows dark. It looked abandoned, but the sight of shelter brought her a shred of relief. The whispers, however, didn't stop. If anything, they grew louder, as if urging her toward the cabin. Just for the night, she whispered to herself. Just until morning. The door creaked as she pushed it open, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the stillness. Inside, the air was thick and stale, carrying a faint metallic tang. She swept her flashlight across the room. The furniture was old and broken, the walls stained with years of neglect. But something caught her eye, markings on the far wall. She stepped closer, her flashlight trembling in her grip. Names were carved into the wood, hundreds of them, etched so deeply the letters seemed to bleed into one another. Her eyes scanned the wall, her stomach twisting, when she saw the same name repeated over and over. Claire. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she backed away, her flashlight flickering. The cabin door slammed shut behind her. She screamed, spinning around, but the room was empty. The whispers surged, louder than ever, no longer soft or distant, but right next to her, as if someone were breathing against her ear. Stay with us, Claire. She stumbled backward, her eyes darting around the room. Shadows moved in the corners, shifting unnaturally, their shapes impossible to define. No, she screamed. Leave me alone. The flashlight died, plunging the cabin into darkness. The last thing she heard was a name, whispered in a chorus of voices, before the ground seemed to give way beneath her. The forest was silent again. Days later, hikers found the cabin, its door hanging open. Inside, the names on the wall remained, but Claire's name was no longer alone. It had company.